Hi, welcome to the third video looking at the DA40, the DA40, the TDI version, and I'm going to give you a bit of an overview of the GPS, the G430, so that you understand some of the basics of how it works. And then the next video I will show you how I allocate the buttons and the rotary controllers to make it work. But I think it's good to have a bit of an understanding of how this works, and also we can separate it out because some people know how it all works, so they can skip this video and then just have a look at how the buttons are done. So choose how you want to do it. Of course, the G430 isn't specific to the DA40. It's used in lots of other aircraft as well. So this is a basic introduction to one of the earlier GPS and nav devices. So help you get your head around things. One of the things to notice, of course, is that there is no autopilot in this one here. You still have to fly manually. So this becomes a nav aid, really. It aids your navigation, but you have to fly the aircraft, which I don't think is a bad thing. It tests your piloting skills, but this helps with the navigation. There are plenty of good videos out there for the real world G430, so if you want to look at some of those, it will give you an indication of how the real world works. But I want to concentrate on the Microsoft Asobo, I presume it's pronounced Asobo, implementation of it, because they haven't implemented everything, and there are one or two features in here which don't quite match the real world videos as far as I can see. But anyway, I've looked at quite a few videos about it. I'm not a real world pilot at all. I had one lesson 30 odd years ago, loved it but can't afford it, and we were in a basic 152 which had no GPS. So GPS didn't exist 30 odd years ago, let's be honest. So I've had no real experience flying with this in real life, but I've flown with it quite a while in the sim. So let's have a look at what we've got. So I dealt with all the comms stuff on the previous one, but just as a reminder for you how this works, this side here always works by these knobs here. So we've got the inner and outer. The outer one does the megahertz and the inner one does the kilohertz, and we can swap between adjusting the comm or the navigation frequencies by just pressing the button on the end here, and again works exactly the same way. So it's very, very consistent, and we can swap from standby to active. Let's do this one here. You don't have to be in control of that one. We can be in control of the comms, but we want to swap this over, so they swap over quite happily. So these work quite well. I'm leaving the volumes on full volume. These do turn, but I can't find access to the controller for it, so just leave it on there. If you watch a real world video, pressing on these buttons and holding them actually has functions which aren't emulated here. We don't really need them. Just if you're curious, these ones here are where the SIM card equivalents are, the memory cards are for the various databases, the terrain database and frequency databases. So that's where in the real world you would update those. So that's what that's about. Okay, we also looked at the CDI button last time, and that controls whether this device here is being driven by the frequencies, the actual locator, the VOR that you're going for, which is this one here, or is it being driven by your GPS when you've actually got a waypoint that you're aiming for programmed in. So that's what controls this, and we get an indicator here, a little flag, so we know whether we're in GPS mode or VLOC mode. Okay. The OBS button unfortunately isn't programmed in, isn't emulated, doesn't do anything. What it should do, no, tell you what you're missing. I quite like the OBS button. What it does is if you've got a waypoint you're heading for, you press the OBS and you should be able to change here the track that it's going to hunt down for you. You can do it obviously with a VOR, but you can have any waypoint you like. So it's quite nice if you go into an airfield that doesn't have an ILS. What you can do is you can select that as your next waypoint, press OBS and change this to the runway heading, and it will essentially create a virtual radial that you'll be able to pick up on here and fly in on. So it gives you like an artificial locator. It doesn't give you obviously the glide slope, but it will give you your left-right orientation for coming in. So any airfield with the OBS button can have effectively an ILS locator. Shame that they missed it out. I know it's not working because if you put in your waypoint, when you click on OBS, it should announce here that you're in OBS mode. If you've got a flight plan with a number of legs in, and you're heading towards a particular leg, you can then click the OBS, and what it will do is it will suspend your transfer from one leg to another when you get to it, and effectively helps you create a holding point. So if the ATC asks you to hold at your next destination, or when you get to it, hold at a particular point, the OBS is useful for creating holds. So again, I've never had a hold in ATC from Microsoft Flight Simulator. I don't think they've got that concept. But if you're on VATSIM, you get given hold. So it's a shame that's missing, really. Message kind of works, but it doesn't. It takes you into the message thing, but nothing actually happens here. It should tell you when you're going into and alert you when you're changing to airspace, different airspaces, but it doesn't happen. The flight plan works pretty well, and that's where we're going to put in a flight plan, and I'll demonstrate that in a bit and show you how that's done. And this is if you want to pick a procedure, particularly in flight. It's quite useful if often when you fly into somewhere you don't know which approach you're going to be given, so you don't have to commit yourself to an approach in your flight plan and just pick up your procedure at the end. You can select an approach and then activate it. So the procedure button works really well. And I'll probably demonstrate that in one of my demonstration flights. You can see how that works. And then over here we've got the same sort of system here. We've got an outer and an inner knob and a push to give us a cursor, and I'll show you that in operation in a little bit. But this is what drove me to get my X-Touch Mini, because I hated this idea that when you're trying to get into it, if you miss slightly, it would zoom you in and out. And particularly in flight, that became really awkward. So that's what drove me to look at the X-Touch Mini, not doing that. So when I'm demonstrating, I probably will use my X-Touch rather than have this zooming in and out business going on if I get a bit clumsy. Okay, we'll talk about this in a bit. The buttons here are really simple. Clear has two functions. One is one click will clear the entry that you're doing. But if you hold it down for a couple of seconds, if you get lost in the menu system, hold it down for a couple of seconds, you'll end up back here at your default page. And we'll talk about this page in a second. Ent is when you've made a choice, you want to enter it, confirms, all those kind of things. That's what enter does. Direct to, so if you choose a waypoint here, anywhere, you can go direct to, press it here, it'll ask me to put a waypoint in, and then I can say just fly direct to it. Let's clear that. So I'll demonstrate that. Hold it down for a couple of seconds, and here we are back at the main thing there. And menu has a couple of different functions depending on which screen you've got up. So the menu will allow you to change the field here. So if you're on this particular page here, you could change what data fields are being given to you. There are plenty to choose from. Let's just enter into that. So here for the distance, what have I got available to me? Change fields, enter, and what I should be able to do here is to look using these knobs here at the various different things that are available to me. So there's a fair number of different fields that you can put on there. Depends what information you're after. Cross-track is often quite useful to find out how far off of your track you are, but I'll leave it as the default at the moment. So let's get out of that. So holding down the clear just clears everything, and away we go. I'll talk about what this is in a bit. Let's go there, and then the range. Well, I'll show you how that works as we get to it. So this is the interesting bit here. The analogy I was given was these are different chapters, and within that chapter you've got some pages. So the first chapter we're on is the nav, and we change the pages with the small button. So the pages available to us at the moment. So the first one here is an OBS display, and it will show us when we've got a track and we're flying. It will show us where that track is. It's very similar to this needle here, electronic version of that. So it gives us an idea how far off the track we are. The next one across, it gives us a map, and that's where the range button comes in, of course, so that we can zoom in and see the airport we're at, and we can zoom out and see the terrain we're at. And if you've got a flight plan in, it will show you the course that we're flying and all the legs of that. So that's what that one does. Again, the inner button here takes us to the next one here, and when we've got a flight plan in, it will give us information here, the frequencies and things like that of the airport that we're heading for. So that's quite useful, and I'll demonstrate that in a second. And the next one across gives us basically the compass rose. So we've got an electronic compass, the track we're heading on, the ground speed, altitude, and again you can change the fields on that. So we've got various different fields that we can put up here. Okay, so that's, and if you just keep on, it just rotates around those. So that's this chapter with its 4 different pages. The next chapter across is waypoints. So we can get information about an airport. We can put in the airport code here, and it will give us various bits of information about that airport. And it's still on airport because we may want to get know what runways there are, and this one here will be the frequencies that we can use. So we'll look at that in a second. So there's 4 pages of airport information. The next one is an intersection, and then a non-directional beacon, the ADF function, so we can enter those and get information about the frequencies and things like that here. And then the last one is the VOR. So again, we can input a VOR and then get information about it. So they're the pages in the waypoint section. And the next one across is really nice, very useful. When you're flying, it'll tell you what the nearest airport to you is, and if you click on the end here, what we can do is we can use the outer button to move up and down and look for what a suitable one. I watched a video the other day showing them training a student in using this in an emergency situation. So yeah, engine failure, what's my nearest airport, is the runway long enough for me to land at? And one of the little functions on it, let's go, I'll go, imagine EKB is my target. So if I go there, what I can also do is if I click on that information here, and if we press enter, what it should do is put that straight away into the standby frequency, so we're ready straight away to talk to the tower. And what we can do then is on there we can press straight away into direct and go direct to that, so we can direct to there and get the cursor up again on here. Whoops, and this is where that button is a bit of a pain. Let's go back where we were. Let's clear that. So, whoops, not direct at all. Again, we'll clear that. And right, so we want to go for the nearest, and we're going to EKB. We want to go direct to it, and make sure I'm on the outer button. And one click backwards, activate that, and we are now heading off towards the airport we've deemed safe that we want to land at. So a bit of a clumsy demonstration because using the on-screen version is horrible. Much easier with the actual knobs, but it's worth having a little practice of that. Pretend you've had an engine failure and see how quickly you can find an airport and get to it and be able to talk to them. Okay, so we've done nav, we've looked at waypoints, nearest, again the sub pages in there, nearest airport, nearest intersection. So it's a funny order they put them, but yeah, there's your intersections. Nearest non-directional beacon and nearest VOR. Now there's no real trick to these, unfortunately. We can't pick up frequencies. So I push the cursor and then try to move. What the button does, the outer button does now, once I push the cursor doesn't actually appear, but it moves me, it scrolls me up and down within that page. So I've got a longer list of VORs that can be shown. And if I take the cursor off, well, there's no cursor visible, I'm back into going through the pages again. So that's a bit weird, that one. And let's go, there's my nearest VOR and nearest airspace. Okay, so we've done nearest, and then the last one across is the channel spacing for your radio, but I leave that well alone. It seems to be set properly, it works quite fine. So chapters are nav, waypoint, nearest, and then this auxiliary, and within that all the pages, and we've been through this. What I'm going to do is demonstrate putting in a flight plan. What I've got in mind for my test flight is to use taking off at southeast of England again, and we'll take off from Shoreham by sea, which is quite nice. We're flying on the coast here. There's interesting stuff to watch. So, and it's got a fairly complex set of airports here because we're in the London area. So we've got London Gatwick here, London Heathrow, London City. So we've got various large airports, and there's plenty of small aerodromes around the area. So got quite a bit of variety. What we'll do is we will put this flight plan in from there to the VOR at Shoreham, and then we'll fly up to Biggin Hill. So just a couple of legs that we're going to put in. So we can create a nav log for that. And that's what we'll put in, and we'll put in the frequencies. So let's have a quick look at how we do that. I will keep that over for myself over on a second monitor, and we'll just look at the flight planning section here. So in the flight plan, I want to clear that. So I'm going to delete my flight plan. That's all gone. Okay, so we clear that out. So my procedure is push for the cursor, and then we just use the inner knob to put in Echo Golf Kilo Alpha, which is where we're starting from. And I'm going to actually use my my physical ones, it's quicker. So Echo, and then I want to move across to the next digit, and that will be the outer knob used once, and that will move me across, and then we're back to the inner one again to make this work. So Echo Golf, using the outer one to nudge across, Kilo Alpha, and it says it's Shoreham, and that's where we are. So we would press the enter button here, and that's entered into our flight plan. The way I do it is I nudge down to the next one using the outer, and we're going to put in our next point, which is here. That's the VOR at Seaford. So let's put that in. So again, straight away going for the inner knob. The cursor is already flashing, so we don't need to bring the cursor up, and we can just go straight into putting in Seaford. Now you've got to be careful with this one, because it will only bring up allowed entries. It jumps straight from Alpha to Delta, nothing else in between, and it's saying it's Seaford in England, but when I press the enter button to enter it, you'll see it says there's duplicates, and I want this one here. So yes, we confirm that with the second press, and we've now got that. So we use the outer knob here, dodge down and start straight away with the inner knob, and I want to put in Biggin Hill. So that's Echo Golf Kilo Bravo. And that's Biggin Hill, so we can confirm that with an enter. And that's it, the flight plan is done, so we can turn the cursor off. And pressing that should turn the cursor off. Interestingly, it doesn't. So we'll just come out of the flight plan and just go back and double check. Yeah, that's fine. And so we are here, and it's activated that leg already. We don't have to activate anything particularly. It is the active flight plan. What have we got here as an option? Well, we have got invert the flight plan. So if we're coming home again, we can invert that. We can delete it. We can select an approach, but I'm going to leave that because we don't really know what approach we're going to get. Same with arrival, departure. So we've got those areas there, but we can also pick them up from the procedure button. So it's not a problem. We can do that later. So let's get out of the menu and bring back the flight plan here. Okay, so now we can see this display here. The first one, the nav, has actually got the leg marked, and again we can just check the OBS isn't working, so it's definitely not working. There's the information that we've got. It's the track we're on. This is, we're not actually moving, of course, we're sitting there, but that's the direction we're heading. So we've got the data here. We can change those fields if we want to. The next one across, we'll do the sub pages. Here's our map, the overview, so we can look at what we're going to do, make sure that it matches up. So let's go arrange out, and that matches, and you can see the magenta line, that's our active leg, and then we get to here, it'll automatically activate this leg, and we have to fly it manually, make the turns, everything manually, but that's how that's what we want to do. Next one across is, now we've got the various frequencies that we can use. Interesting to know, can we pick these up live? Let's see if we can go down and pick up the frequency, and we'll press enter on that, and we'll see if that brings that over to here. So enter. Yes, it does. So we can pick these frequencies up live. Some you can and some you can't. You can't pick up VORs and put those in. It just doesn't seem to work on that page, but that one worked. Okay, and then the next one across. So we need to take the cursor off. There we go. And here we are, back to that compass rose again. Okay, so that's the nav one. Now we've got an active flight plan. The waypoint, we have to actually put the information in, but we can do that quite easily. So I'd like to know information about my destination, which was Biggin Hill, which is, so I'm using my small knob here, but I'm using my actual physical one, dodge across with the outer, I'll click on the outer, Echo Golf Kilo Bravo is what we're going for. Echo Golf Kilo Bravo Biggin Hill. We'll press enter on that, and now the subpages here will give us all the information about it knows about Biggin Hill. Not as complete as the real world, but it does. So we know something about the runway that we're using. That's runway 32, and in fact, if we look at we can select information on different runways, I believe. There is only the one runway, so no, that is the runway that's going to give information for. Okay, so it's 3 and runway 03 and 0 and 21. If there were more than one runway, I seem to remember that you can pick the different bits of information there. Okay, so let's come out of that. So if we clear No, not going to let me clear. Let's turn the cursor off. No, enter. Yes, we can enter that. Okay. Next one across. The frequencies for Big and Hill. So we could set up our frequency and standby, all that kind of stuff if we want to do that. And then we can look at what approaches are available to us. So let's go and have a look. And if we enter on that, there's the different approaches that are available to us. Not as informative as you would hope. Let's have a look at that one there. So if we enter on there, we've got, we can also look at the transition points. Let's do that again. Transition points, we'll enter there, and that is the only transition then for that particular approach. But there's nothing much else we can do with it. There's no activate button or anything here, so it seems to be for information only. Okay, so back into Waypoint. And it remembers which page you're on the waypoint as you went across. So that was airport, and this is still now about the you have to manually enter the information, but we've got that in there, and it shows you what's available in terms of a big. Let's look at the waypoint information for Seaford, where we're heading for that VOR. So on the waypoint, let's go back to the VOR and let's put in Seaford, which is one of the waypoints on the way. That's the VOR we're heading at. Now you've got to be really careful with this one, because if you drop off the end it goes to a blank, and again it only puts up valid Seaford, and that's what I said. So we've just dropped off the end there. It's a strange little bug, it doesn't rotate around. So if you go one click too many, you just lose it. So, and I've done it again and again and again. Seaford, press enter. And we've got the frequency. But I pulled the cursor up, I'm trying to move, normally you would step through the fields, so I can't pick the frequency up and stick it into there, which is a bit of a shame really. Anyway, there we go, that's the frequencies there. Let's see if we can come out of that. Hold down the clear button. Yes, we can come out of that. So we have now got our flight plan. That's all set up and ready to go. We can get the frequencies set in advance. Let's see if we can get it off the nearest. So let's go, and I want to get Seaford in there, so my nearest VOR, and I said I can't bring up the cursor to move down to there, so there's no way of getting that into there on this particular implementation from Microsoft. In the real world you can pick the frequencies and drop them in there. Okay, that's it, that's the overview really. So the biggest concept really is when to use the inner, when to use the outer buttons here, and the various different pages and chapters. And this long clear press is quite important, that brings us back there. Okay, so the next video I'll show you how to actually allocate the buttons, and that's really quite simple. Not a long video really. And then we'll do a test flight and see if it works. Okay, so I'll see you in the next video.